Welcome to the Uncover Your Eyes podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Meenal Agarwal. I want to start today by asking you a question. Why do you shrink or feel like you have to shrink when you go into a room? Whether it's a clinic meeting, a boardroom setting, a conference, a panel, many of us feel like we have to shrink when we enter that room. I have felt this way pretty much my whole life, and I'm going to say definitely over the last 5 or 10 years. Doesn't matter what degree we hold, the authority that we are in that space, whether we are a doctor, a healthcare provider, an expert in our fields, we will still feel like we have to shrink when we go into a room. A very subconscious feeling, and we do. Doesn't have to be a look someone gives, but we do. A part of me always felt like this was because of what other people would say to me, subconscious looks that they would give me, whether they were valid or not, or whether I was bigging it up in my own head. I don't know. But yes, that was probably a trigger point for me, was noticing that maybe they felt I didn't earn that space or I didn't deserve that space, or was it actually in my head? When I would go into these spaces, my shoulders would round in, my voice would soften, and my mind would second guess everything, even though I earned every right to be there. This feeling for years ruled my life. What I didn't realize then, but now understand, is that shrinking is not really a personality flaw. It's actually a spatial neurological response. Your eyes and brain are constantly scanning the room for safety, hierarchy, cues, and threats long before you're consciously aware of it. And when a space doesn't feel safe, emotionally, socially, or psychologically, your physiology reacts. And here's what shrinking looks like through your brain. Your peripheral vision narrows, signaling your threat circuits. Your amygdala activates, preparing for judgment or conflict. Your posture collapses forward, a protective mechanism. Your voice quiets because the vagus nerve pulls back its parasympathetic tone. And your brain literally says, make yourself smaller so you're less exposed. So there is this physiological response that is really beyond your control that happens without you even recognizing it. And here's the truth I wish I knew sooner. Most shrinking happens long before you enter the room. It begins in the rooms that you grew up in. It begins in the comments that you absorbed by countless people. It begins in the moments where you weren't seen or heard or believed. It begins with cultural expectations, gender norms in those cultures, and subtle conditioning. I grew up in a world where being agreeable was praised, being quiet was polite, and being outspoken was just being too much. That was definitely me. So even when I walked into a room as a leader, my body still entered as the girl who had been taught to shrink every single day. And one day I realized, and this was even before I understood the verbiage around spatial awareness or spatial processing, I was walking into a meeting and I realized I wasn't really doubting my abilities. I was doubting and questioning my right to take up space. That moment changed everything because when you can name the pattern, you can finally break it. So today I want to share 3 insights, not from neurology, not from physiology, not from quotes, but from my lived experience on how to help yourself understand that you don't have to shrink. Number one, your nervous system decides before your confidence does. You don't shrink because you're weak. You shrink because your brain is wired to protect you from social threat. The visual system plays a huge role here. When your peripheral vision collapses, something that happens kind of under stress, your brain shifts into hyper focus and survival mode. You become overly aware of yourself and under aware of the room. That imbalance makes you feel exposed rather than being grounded. And you literally need to widen your visual field in order to feel bigger. That means small eye movements, scanning the room, finding corners, ceilings, depth. These signals tell your brain, I have space and I am safe. Number 2, shrinking is not your destiny, it's a learned pattern. If you were raised in environments where confidence was punished, opinions were dismissed, perfection was expected, deviation was criticized, cultural roles defined how loud you were allowed to be, then your body learned to contract as a survival strategy. That's not your fault. But now, as an adult, your responsibility is to unlearn that. This isn't mindset work, it's nervous system retraining. Number 3, taking up space is not arrogance, it's alignment. When you walk into a room and take up space with your posture, voice, and presence, you are not being too much. You are being accurate. You are matching the size of your experience, your expertise, your truth. The world doesn't need you quieter, it needs you clearer. So try these steps next time you enter a room. Step inside and immediately widen your gaze. Look to the farthest point in the room. Let your peripheral vision activate. This resets your spatial brain. Then take a grounding breath, slow exhale first. The vagus nerve needs a cue to re enter calm. Then silently say to yourself, I choose my size here. Not the room, not the people, not old patterns. You choose. Because shrinking is no longer a survival strategy, it's an outdated reflex. For so many years and so long, we have all shrunk, whether it's because we're of a certain gender, we're of a certain cultural background, we're of a certain size, we look a certain way, we're of a certain stature. There's so many reasons that we can give ourselves to shrink in a room, but that must end today. We must know that we are entering into a room that we earned space in. There was a reason we're walking into that room. Otherwise, we wouldn't be walking into it. Nothing about you is too much. You've simply been in really small rooms and you belong in bigger ones. Rooms that expand you, not compress you. So the next time you walk into that room, walk in as someone who finally understands the ability to take up space is not emotional. It's neurological, cultural, spatial, and reclaimable. If this episode spoke to you, share it with your son, your daughter, your sibling, your coworker, another professional in your field. Share it with someone who needs to hear that they need to walk into a bigger room and expand, not shrink. Thank you, listeners and viewers, for tuning in. If you want to catch more episodes of Uncover Your Eyes, make sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. To learn more about me, follow me on Instagram at dr.Meenal Agarwal. Until next time, keep those eyes uncovered.